Capital to capital, red dominates in Florida. From the state's legislative delegations to Florida's congressional delegation, the GOP enjoys a strong majority. Will the balance of power change in November? That's the question we'll ask on Power Play this week with our guests, Karen Thurman and Jim Greer, the chairs of the Democratic and Republican parties. And let's get legislative. We've got big contests at the federal level in Florida's congressional delegation and in the state legislative delegations. Is there going to be a change in the balance of power and GOP control?
Ultimately, I don't think so. I think in Florida we're going to keep the Republican members of Congress we have. I think we're going to pick up one by sending Mr. Mahoney back into retirement and putting Tom Rooney into the congressional seat down there, because at the end of the day, Americans know and Floridians know that in economic challenging times, we don't need higher taxes and more government. And with Nancy Pelosi sitting in the Speaker's chair in Washington, putting more Democrats in Washington is not the answer.
All right, you brought up the Foley race. A Democrat's elected to fill the seat of the disgraced former congressman. Chairman Greer says he's going down. Is it so?
He's not going down. In fact, he's going to be there, and there's going to be a lot of races like this. If you look at the votes that have been taken by this Republican delegation consistently, who have taken votes against veterans, in fact, voting against some of their own projects and saying, no, we're not going to have a veterans hospital, or no, we're not going to give veterans care to folks. But here's the interest. The interesting thing is that we have candidates that started early in these campaigns, and they started early because they had had enough of what's going on.
Let's go with this. If there's a political dynasty in Florida's congressional delegation, it's the Diaz-Balart brothers, both of them with significant challenges from Democratic candidates. What's going to be the outcome?
I think we're going to pick those seats up. I think Raul Martinez and Joe Garcia.
Both? That's a bold prediction.
I think we are. And I think just because of the changes in the registration that we've seen, as we talked about before, the Hispanic vote is flipping back over to the Democratic side. In fact, is already, and we continue to see those registration numbers go up.
I see Chairman Greer likely not to agree on this.
Well, there's no doubt that we have challenges in these races, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe the voters of those districts are going to see that both of those congressmen have served their constituents well. They're going to see that more taxes, more government in a person's lives is not the answer, and they're going to return both of those great members to Congress.
Well, I disagree with that.
If Florida goes Republican or Democrat in its presidential vote, is there a coattail effect on how people vote in congressional and legislative races?
I think to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be performance, and I think that's why we're going to keep those congressional seats. We're going to pick one up. Mr. Mahoney has publicly said he doesn't even like being a congressman down in that area. So that surprises me that they anticipate he's going to be reelected when he said he doesn't even like being a congressman.
You know, I just think we handicap these races differently, and I believe it's shockingly different, right? But I think that when we're looking at the issues that are facing the state and what's happened, and by the way, you tell me that it's okay for Lincoln Diaz-Balart to talk about the fact that we're going to help children in overseas, but he won't even vote for the health care for children in this country. I think that's a little bit out of touch with his constituency.
Going back 10 years probably, Republicans have enjoyed a majority in the Florida legislature, a stranglehold, some would say. Is that going to loosen up at all in November?
Absolutely, as it did in 06. And I think that the question was asked about the coattails. We didn't see any coattails with Charlie Crist. In fact, if anything, they were running from him and voting for Democrats on the other side, even in his own county.
But the governor enjoys a majority in the legislature of his own party to get his program through.
Yeah, the governor absolutely has high approval ratings with the voters of the state, and ultimately at the end of the day, that benefits the Republican Party. As far as the House and Senate, my colleague says that the Democrats are going to pick up 9 to 12 House seats. I don't see it that way. I think we're going to hold what we have. We may even pick up 1 or 2 seats. And in the Senate side, I'm confident we're going to pick up a couple Senate seats. So we recognize we have challenges out there. We recognize that we've got to get out there. But at the end of the day, the voters are not going to vote in these hard economic times with these challenges for higher taxes and more government, and that's what the Democrats want.
Any chance we can get you two in a local pub to share a beer together and talk about this?
Absolutely.
Do you think we can do that?
Is it the one he owns?
After the election?
I don't own any.
After the election, we're going to have some brews, okay?
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Karen Thurman, Jim Greer, chairs of the Democrat and Republican Party, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Always
you.
special. Go to the Safety Review for the latest political news, and we'll see you next time on Power Play.